Okay. Wow, my mirror is like really in the shot. How am I supposed to see myself? Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of
Crue Trime.
Crue Trime. Crue Trime. If you are new here, hello! My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day. And put on my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds like fun to you, you are in the right place. So go ahead and subscribe to this channel and then hit the little notification bell so that way you will never miss one of my terrible stories. So currently there are like unlimited ways to consume the news, specifically stories about crime. There's a million podcasts that have kind of followed the long form documentary format. And there's even some dedicated streaming services. But for today's story, we're gonna rewind back to the early 90s, where the only way that you like really ingested some like real life Crue Trime was the nightly news and the ever celebrated tabloid news shows like Hard Copy, A Current Affair. Do you guys remember this? I mean, these were like half tabloid, half entertainment TV shows, but a lot of crime. A lot of scandal. So today's story was recommended by an amazing viewer named Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie! This one is a real blast from the past, so hold on to your butts. This is the story of Amy Fisher. On May 19th, 1992, the Nassau County 911 dispatch received a call that a woman had been shot at number 1 Adam Road West in Massapequa, New York.
Massapequa, it sounds like a magical place.
The caller identified themselves as a neighbor of Joey and Mary Jo Buttafuoco. He had been sitting outside on his patio reading the morning paper when he heard what was definitely a gunshot. This guy was a retired NYPD police officer, so he knew. So he ran across the street to the Buttafuoco's house to see what happened, and he found 37-year-old Mary Jo lying face down on her front stoop. She had been shot in the head, and there was blood everywhere. Other neighbors would later say that they also heard the gunshot, but they didn't see anything out of the ordinary. So once the ambulance and the police and all that arrived, they actually called a helicopter to medevac Mary Jo to the Nassau County Medical Center. And just as that was happening, her husband, 37-year-old Joey, arrived just in time to see Mary Jo on a gurney being loaded up. So of course the police very briefly questioned Joey on the scene, you know, like, who could have done this? Do you guys have enemies? No, of course not. So the police stayed behind to investigate, and Joey went on to the hospital to be with Mary Jo. And aside from all the blood all over the porch, the only real evidence that was found at the scene were some .25 caliber bullet casings. This wasn't some sophisticated criminal hit, you know, this was an inexperienced shooter. So at the hospital, Mary Jo was miraculously still alive, but it wasn't looking good at all. She'd been shot in the right side of her head, right near the ear, and the bullet was still inside. I mean, she had been shot at point blank range, and somehow her face and head was like totally intact. Sorry if that's too gruesome to think about. So the bullet actually had severed her carotid artery. It's amazing that she didn't just bleed out on the porch. She did lose like half of the blood in her body. She underwent a nearly 8-hour operation to get inside and, you know, try to get the bullet out and fix the damage. During the surgery, the doctors determined that the bullet was like too close to really important things like her spinal column and brain stem, so they ended up having to leave it in. After the surgery, Mary Jo was on a ventilator in a coma for a couple days. But on May 22nd, she woke up. So she lost hearing permanently in that right ear, and the right side of her face was paralyzed. So Mary Jo would later tell investigators that she had gotten the kids off to school that day, and she was in the backyard painting a bench when she heard the doorbell. When she got to the door, she saw a teenage girl standing on the porch. Mary Jo didn't know the girl, she didn't recognize her, but she did notice parked across the street was a Ford Thunderbird that she didn't recognize either. Mary Jo shook the young girl's hand and asked her name, and she said it was Anne Marie. The young girl said, "Are you Mrs. Buttafuoco?" She said, "Yes." "I need to talk to you about your husband, Joey. I just found out he's having an affair with my little sister." And Mary Jo was incredulous. "Little sister? How old are you?" And Anne Marie said that she was 19 and her little sister was 14. Well, Mary Jo didn't believe anything that this Anne Marie was saying, but Anne Marie insisted that she had proof. So she produced from a pocket or bag, whatever, a t-shirt. The t-shirt was from Complete Auto Body, which was the auto body shop that her husband, Joey, owned. The design on the shirt was one of the new ones that had just come in like within the last week or so, and Mary Jo was like, So now, a dramatic reenactment.
Where'd you get this?
I found it in my little sister's bed.
That's not Long Island.
Who's driving that car?
My boyfriend.
Where do you live?
Bell Harbor.
Bell Harbor is that way. Where do you really live?
Dolphin Court.
Well, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna call Joey and tell him you came by. But I gotta go, I'm painting in the backyard.
How'd I do? Terrible? Unsubscribe? Sorry. Anyways, as Mary Jo turned to go back into the house, all of a sudden she felt a terrible pain in her head, and then she woke up in the hospital. So as soon as Mary Jo woke up, her family, the doctors, and the investigators started asking, "Who did this to you? What happened?" Well, obviously, she couldn't speak, having tubes and stuff all down her throat. But she did motion for a pen and paper so that she could write something down. She wrote, "Anne Marie, 19, Complete Auto Body t-shirt, Dolphin Court." As soon as she handed the paper to Joey, he realized that he'd only given out one of those t-shirts to the daughter of one of his customers, Elliot Fisher. Well, Joey talked to the detectives about the t-shirt and Elliot did have a daughter, but her name wasn't Anne Marie, it was Amy. So, who the heck is Amy Fisher? I'm glad you asked. Amy Elizabeth Fisher was born on August 21st, 1974 in Long Island, New York, to Roseanne and Elliot Fisher. Roseanne and Elliot owned the Stick and Sew upholstery shop in Freeport, just a few miles from Massapequa. The Fishers were an upper middle class family, similar to the Buttafuocos, similar to everybody in that area. So that area of Long Island is very suburban, very idyllic.
It sounds like a magical place. Tell me about Massapequa. Is it steeped in Native American history?
Sidewalks, flower beds, kids on bikes, you get it. So Amy was a spoiled brat, essentially. She was an only child, she didn't want for anything, and she attended Kennedy High School. Amy's friends would later say that Amy and her dad never got along because she was wild.
You're wild!
And she was. But we'll come back to that. So for Amy's 16th birthday, her parents, of course, bought her a brand new car. And while she had been warned about being careful when driving, it was just a couple of months before she had her first accident, where she was backing out of the garage, not paying attention, and knocked off one of her side mirrors. So Amy's dad, Elliot, took Amy and her car to Complete Auto Body in Baldwin, the shop owned by Joey Buttafuoco. Joey Buttafuoco was born and raised in Massapequa, Long Island, New York. He met the beautiful Mary Jo Connery in 1971 when they were both in their freshman year at Massapequa High School. Joey and Mary Jo came from very similar upbringings, you know, Catholic families, and they grew up in the same neighborhood. They dated all throughout high school, and Joey was a bit of a rascal, partying and all that, but he was very charming, a smooth talker. And Mary Jo was the responsible one, and she was head over heels for Joey. A few years after graduating from high school, when he was 21 and she was 22, they got married. A few years later, in 1980, they welcomed their first child, a son that they named Paul. And 3 years later, they had a daughter they named Jessica. So Joey and Mary Jo were doing great. They'd saved up all their doll hairs to buy a house, and they were ready to upgrade to something bigger, you know. But then they hit a little bump in the road. Turns out that while Mary Jo was being the responsible wife and mother, Joey had developed a pretty serious drug problem.
Powdered sugar. He's like, delicious cereal.
I see him like
looking and talking about
where's your little restaurant?
It was so serious, in fact, that Joey had racked up substantial debt with his drug dealer. So when Mary Jo was expecting to sell their current starter house and then use that money as the down payment for the upgrade, surprise, Joey had actually agreed to sign over the deed to his cocaine dealer to settle his debt.
Oh, hell no!
So, example number 1 of Joey being an incredible liar and Mary Jo either willfully looking the other way or just having no clue what's going on around her. Or, third option, not caring. Did Mary Jo leave Joey, you ask? Hell no. She stood by her man. She sent him off to rehab and then waved off the small house, I guess. Got a $50,000 loan from her daddy to cover the down payment on the bigger house. Joey got his shit together, rehab worked, he dropped his little cocaine habit, and never had any other drug issues down the road. He went back to running the family business, Complete Auto Repair in Baldwin, and Mary Jo stayed home to care for the kids. So the Buttafuoco's marriage had been tested, but Joey and Mary Jo were solid as a rock. They were raising a family, they were running a business, living life in the Long Island bubble of bliss. Then, in the summer of 1991, Amy Fisher walked into Joey's auto shop. So Amy's dad, Elliot, was a regular customer at the body shop, and he told Amy that if anything happened to her car, to take it there, and Joey would take care of it. So over the next year or so, Amy would end up bringing her car back repeatedly. Was she a reckless teen driver, or was she messing the car up on purpose just to be a spoiled brat? Was there even any work being done to the car, or was Amy just finding an excuse to hang around Joey? Some people would later say that the interaction between Amy and Joey was flirtatious. Amy said that they would kid around, joke around, chit-chat, and he was always very, very nice to her, which, according to Amy, was something that was missing in the relationship with her own father. He was so hard on her. There's also some allegations of, abuse of varying kinds, but I really couldn't find anything besides Amy's later memoir, which is very contradictory in itself, so we're just gonna leave it alone. The point is, Amy felt like she knew Joey. He wasn't a stranger. So in July of 1991, Amy had dropped her car off to get worked on. It was something that required it to stay overnight, so Joey actually drove her home. And this was after calling Amy's dad to make sure it was okay. Apparently Amy's parents were out of town or unavailable in some way. Whatever. According to Amy, she very politely invited Joey inside for a drink, and then one thing led to another. She said that he asked to see her bedroom, and then he threw her on the bed and had his way with her. She's 16 years old, he's 36. She said that he said all kinds of nice things to her, like how beautiful she was and how much he loved her, and don't worry, he'd had a vasectomy. Well, after that encounter, Amy and Joey began seeing each other regularly. In Amy's mind, they were dating. They would meet for adult sleepovers at her house or at various local motels, at Joey's body shop, or even the speedboat that Buttafuoco owned called Double Trouble. Amy would keep in touch with Joey using a beeper. You guys remember those, right? This is pre-cell phone days, friends. So Amy told all of her friends at school that she had an older boyfriend that got the beeper for her, and he bought her a lot of nice things, actually. But apparently, Amy's after-school job was at ABBA escort service.
Hold on to your butts.
Okay, yes, Amy was a teenage girl, 16, but she was doing very adult things. Amy actually claimed in her memoir that Joey Buttafuoco is the one who got her into sex work. He denies that to this day. So this is where it really goes off the rails in this he said, she said type of situation. So Amy made a lot of allegations that were vehemently denied by Joey, her parents, and other people. She was a very young girl, but she was also obviously troubled and in over her head, making very adult decisions and choices, bad choices. Amy also claims that Joey wanted Mary Jo out of the picture.
I talked about killing Joey's wife with Joey.
She said that he told her that he would do anything to be with Amy, and he would even buy her a gun to make it happen. But then apparently Amy was asking Joey all the time when he was going to divorce Mary Jo so that they could be together, and then eventually he started kind of distancing himself from her, brushing her off, and then they essentially broke up. So it's all very confusing. Well, one day Joey got an angry phone call from Amy's father, Elliot. Apparently, Amy had told her parents that she had contracted herpes from Joey. Well, Elliot was furious, and he was threatening to call the district attorney, so Joey agreed to come over and talk. Joey swore up and down to Elliot and Rose that he was not responsible. He had never done anything inappropriate with their young daughter, and not only was she too young for him, he was married, and he wasn't that type of guy. This discussion was happening right in front of Amy, obviously, who was sobbing as Elliot was yelling at both Joey and her. Joey finally got Amy to tell her parents that she was lying. Here's the thing, I'm unclear of whether or not she actually had herpes. She was an escort, so maybe. Amy said that she thought if she said that the herpes had come from Joey, that maybe her dad wouldn't be so upset, which I don't understand that logic at all. Maybe this was just some harebrained scheme of Amy's to like get Joey's attention so they could get back together, question mark? I don't know. Anyway, so by February of 1992, Amy was seeing someone else. A 30-year-old man named Paul Makeley. Yeah, another adult man involved in a sexual relationship with a teenage girl. Hashtag Long Island. Apparently, Amy wanted to get revenge on Joey for unceremoniously dumping her. So she decided that she was going to tell Mary Jo Buttafuoco all about her husband's affair with her. Amy enlisted the help of one of her friends, 21-year-old Peter Guagenti. Now, fast forward to May 19th, 1992. Amy went to school as normal, but then she complained that she wasn't feeling well, so she went to the nurse's office, who excused her to go home. When she got home, her friend Peter was waiting for her to pick her up and take her to the Buttafuoco's house in Massapequa. So now we're back to the beginning of the story when Amy rang the doorbell and Mary Jo ended up in the hospital with a bullet in her head. Fast forward a little more to Joey figuring out that the person Mary Jo said shot her was Elliot Fisher's daughter, Amy. So Joey told the investigators that Elliot Fisher was a client at his auto body shop and that he also had made some repairs on his daughter, Amy's vehicle pretty often. So the police really wanted Joey's help getting Amy to come in for questioning. So Joey beeped Amy, and she responded right away. When she got in her car to drive to where they had planned to meet, she was immediately pulled over by police and arrested for the attempted murder of Mary Jo. So during the interrogation for 12 hours without a parent or lawyer present, by the way, Amy told the detectives about the affair with Joey Buttafuoco and all the rest. The case became a media sensation. Amy was dubbed the Long Island Lolita and a teen hooker. Can we not? I mean, it's all pretty standard, patriarchal, double standard bullshit.
A what now?
Also, tabloid news shows were all over the story like stink on shit. The show, A Current Affair, aired part of a sex tape that showed Amy engaging in services with one of the ABBA escort clients. In the video, you can hear Amy say that she has an older boyfriend that has 2 kids. The media circus around this case was insane at the time. I remember the story being lampooned on In Living Color. Do you guys remember this show from the 90s?
I'm Amy Fisher. You know the Long Island Lolita? And this is Joey Buttafuoco over here.
Jim Carrey was playing Joey Buttafuoco.
Joey Buttafuoco where?
It was nuts.
Are you good with a handgun? Do you like to have sex in a car?
Are you as dumb as Dip?
Oh, she's working it out.
Hey, Mary Jo. I wasn't kissing her. I was, giving a CPR over here.
That's my Joey, always trying to help people over here.
I remember being on the playground quoting this sketch, saying, "I'm Joey Buttafuoco over here."
Over here?
Over here.
Meanwhile, Joey Buttafuoco was making the rounds, saying with his full chest he had nothing to do inappropriate-wise with Amy Fisher. She was a liar, liar, pants on fire, and all that.
Did you know she was obsessed with you?
No.
You never did anything to lead her on?
Absolutely not. Never.
And of course, Mary Jo believed everything he said.
I'm not a stupid woman. I feel like I'm an intelligent woman that knows what's going on in my own life. I'm 37 years old. I just know.
So in August of 1992, Amy Fisher pled not guilty in court. And remember, this was an attempted murder case, not like an actual murder case. But since Amy had been revealed to be working as an escort, the prosecution argued that she would skip bail if given the chance. The judge set her bail at $2 million.
Jesus Christ.
Now, her parents were upper middle class, but they didn't have that kind of money. Amy's lawyer made a public plea to any movie, TV, documentary production company that would bail out Amy could do so in exchange for the rights to the story. The prosecution objected, citing the Slayer statute that says that a criminal cannot profit from their crimes. The defense argued that she was innocent until proven guilty. The judge allowed this little maneuver to be used, so on July 28th, 1992, Amy's parents put up part of the money and the other part was put up by KLM Productions, and Amy was released on bail. And there ended up being at least 3 movies that were made about the story very quickly. The first one was starring Noelle Parker as Amy Fisher, and that one was, more favorable to her side of the story. Then there was Casualties of Love, the Long Island Lolita story, starring Alyssa Milano, which, had the opposite take on the case. Third one was actually starring Drew Barrymore, which was, it was quite similar to the Alyssa Milano version. And they're all on YouTube if you want to watch them. But then there's the accomplice of it all. Remember, when Amy went to the Buttafuoco's house that day, she wasn't driving. It was her friend Peter. On June 12, 1992, 21-year-old Peter Guagenti and his lawyer met with the prosecution. Peter confirmed that he was the man driving the Ford Thunderbird that had been spotted by neighbors in the neighborhood that day. He also told them that he provided Amy the .25 caliber handgun that she used to shoot Mary Jo. And what did Amy give him in exchange, you ask? $800 cash and a blowy. Can we say blowy on YouTube? After the shooting, Peter actually helped Amy to dispose of the gun, and he took the investigators straight to it. It turns out that Amy was actually shopping this deal to more than a few people. This I'll give you cash and sexual favors if you help me out. As the investigation went on, many young men came forward to say that Amy had asked them to kill Mary Jo Buttafuoco or help her do it. One of the guys, Stephen Sleeman, told the police that he had actually gone out with Amy to the Buttafuoco's house with the intent to kill Mary Jo. He had a rifle, he hid in the bushes or something, and the plan fell apart and he ended up chickening out. But all of this just proved that Amy had been planning this for a long time. Clear premeditation. Anywho, this Peter, getaway driver, entered a plea agreement for gun possession, and he did 4 months in prison. Now that the murder weapon was in play, the walls started to close in on Amy Fisher. On September 23rd, 1992, the now 18-year-old Amy entered a plea agreement. She pled guilty to reckless assault and was required to make an allocution, which means, to admit in court the details of the criminal behavior. She apologized to Mary Jo and to the court, and then got on with her version of the story. Amy said that she did go to the Buttafuoco's house. She rang the doorbell and she, on the porch, spoke with Mary Jo for about 10 to 15 minutes. As Mary Jo was turning away, Amy had gotten really mad and she used the gun to strike Mary Jo in the head, like pistol whip her. She didn't mean to shoot her, but the gun went off. And then she panicked and ran away.
Sure, Jan.
You didn't mean to shoot her, but you definitely took the gun to the porch and then took it out. Oh, okay. Well, the plea was accepted by the court and sentencing was set for December 1st. It's actually tough to kind of pick a side in this case, for me. The whole thing is a shit sandwich. Joey Buttafuoco is a 36-year-old. He turned 37 as this went on, but he was an adult man, married, father of 2. He knew how old Amy Fisher was when he met her. The age of consent in New York is 17, so their sexual encounters meet the elements of statutory rape. But also, Amy Fisher clearly acted in premeditation. She bought a gun, she staked up the house, she hired an accomplice, she tried to conceal her identity, she shot a woman in the face, and then left her for dead. I mean, all of these things can be true at the same time. But wait, there's more. So Amy's boyfriend, this gym owner, Paul Magley, sold a recording of Amy, like a conversation they had had. He sold it to Hard Copy, that tabloid TV show, for $10,000. The recording of the conversation was, of course, made without Amy's knowledge or consent. So in the video, Amy is talking to Paul about, like, getting married so that they could have conjugal visits when she was in prison. She was also talking about all the publicity surrounding the case and how she liked the attention. So when asked why, Amy said, well, she could stand to make a lot of money, and if she was gonna have to go through the pain and suffering of going to prison, she was gonna get a Ferrari out of it. I mean, if somebody didn't believe that she was a monster before, they did now. That night, Amy Fisher attempted to take her own life, and she was sent to a psychiatric treatment hospital for over a month. Mary Jo Buttafuoco took the content of that video and shredded it in her court testimony, picking apart every little detail.
To this day, she does not understand the harm she has caused. The tape shows her joking about having sex in jail. She talks about making money as a result of what she did to me. She seeks a red Ferrari as her reward for being in the public limelight. All this damage by someone who still shows absolutely no remorse for her actions.
When Amy made her statement at court, she, again, apologized to Mary Jo, but placed the blame for everything squarely at Joey's feet.
I put Mrs. Buttafuoco and her children through so much pain, and for that I'm deeply sorry. If I could take her pain away, if I could change everything, I would.
So in December of 1992, Amy Fisher was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison.
She knows she's a liar, and now the public knows that she's a liar. The DA didn't even believe her. She's not credible.
So shortly after the sentencing, the DA actually dropped these statutory rape charges against Joey because Amy wasn't a good witness. Did I mention that Joey was actually facing charges? Anyway, so Joey and his lawyer very publicly went around bragging about how they had beat the cops. The Buttafuocos were a fixture on tabloid TV shows and daytime talk shows, with Joey doubling down on his innocence and Mary Jo standing by his side.
I love him. I forgive him. He's my husband.
There were a lot of people around town who knew, specifically some of the employees at Joey's shop, who would later tell investigators how Joey was bragging about his relationship with Amy Fisher. Amy now had a lot of time on her hands, and she knew all of the dates of their sexcapades and the locations of their motel visits. And all of this information was verifiable. Receipts at the hotels with Joey's actual handwritten signature verifiable. On October 14th, 1993, Joey Buttafuoco was indicted on 19 counts of statutory rape. Now, each of those charges carries a potential sentence of up to a year. So on November 21st, 1993, Joey entered a plea agreement. He pled guilty to 1 count of statutory rape and was sentenced to a whole 6 months in prison. Even after pleading guilty, he still claims that he wasn't. He ended up serving a whole 4 months and 9 days and was later released on March 24th, 1994. And even after all that and pleading guilty, he would not admit the truth. This was just a way to rip off the Band-Aid and avoid the risk of a longer sentence had he been found guilty on more of the charges. And by the way, Mary Jo was still on board.
How are your kids doing? Mary Jo, can you show us what Joey bought you yesterday? Right here.
The whole right hand.
Were you surprised, Mary Jo? Very.
Still believed him, still stood by her man. A couple years after Joey completed his sentence, the family actually moved to California for a fresh start. In 1995, Joey Buttafuoco was charged with solicitation in Los Angeles.
Hey, Sugar, you looking for a date?
Apparently, an undercover Vice agent approached Joey Buttafuoco's vehicle and offered services, and Joey joked about how much it would cost him, and then drove away, where he was promptly swarmed by police and arrested. He ended up serving 75 days in jail because he was on probation when that happened. Mary Jo, still standing by her man, just continued to be humiliated in public over and over again by her moron meatball husband. After Amy completed 5 years of her sentence, she was up for parole for the first time, and Mary Jo Buttafuoco went to the parole board to object to her release. Parole was denied. Now, before the next parole board, Amy got a new lawyer that actually contacted Mary Jo and asked her to consider speaking with Rose Fisher, Amy's mother. Mary Jo agreed, and that discussion, along with some other things in her life and some time that had passed after the shooting, kind of changed Mary Jo's perspective. She didn't want to continue living her life holding on to this anger against Amy Fisher and what she had done to ruin her life and her children's life, her entire family's life. She doesn't excuse what Amy did, and she doesn't believe at all that Amy was manipulated into doing anything, but she was ready to move on, and hopefully Amy could move forward in her own life and do something positive. In May of 1997, Mary Jo Buttafuoco actually spoke at Amy's next parole board to advocate for her release. Can you believe that? In 1999, Amy was paroled from prison after serving 7 years. Her reputation was in the garbage, and she couldn't find a job outside of adult entertainment. She eventually married and had 3 children over the years. I think she is divorced now from that husband. Hard to say. They broke up and got back together a bunch of times, but Amy starred in many adult films and now works as an online cam girl. In winter of 2000, Mary Jo Buttafuoco finally woke up and left Joey. Hooray! She now acknowledges that Joey is a liar and a sociopath, and he most certainly was involved in that inappropriate relationship with Amy Fisher that led to her catching a bullet in the head in 1992. In 2003, Joey and Mary Jo Buttafuoco were officially divorced, with their children, now adults, moved out, living their own adult lives. Since then, Joey just cannot get out of his own fucking way. He has been busted for auto insurance fraud. Apparently in his body shop, taking jobs, insurance claim jobs, claiming that it was going to cost more for him to fix it, and then pocketing the rest. It's like a whole elaborate thing. But anyways, he has now been banned for life from ever working in the auto repair industry. In 2005, Joey got remarried, and over the years has made a sprinkle of reality TV show appearances. Celebrity boxing. Mary Jo Buttafuoco has made a lot of appearances on Oprah and other places to talk about her life story and the impact that followed her from 30 years ago. And that is the story of Amy Fisher. Thanks again to Bonnie for recommending this blast from the past. I appreciate you. If you have a Crue Trime story that you want to recommend to me, look down in the description box for the link to the Google document where you can fill in all the dirty details. I would love to hear from you. If you want to know any of the makeup that I used in today's look, check out the description box because everything is linked. And if there's anything I used that is no longer available, I will find you something similar. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! Okay, I'm gonna try to do my best Long Island accent. It might be a little Brooklyn-y, a little Queensy, a little Jersey-ish, I don't know. Wait. Briefly questioned over and over again. I said this. Wait, was it the 22nd? What day was it? On December 1st, nope. Wait, Paul was waiting for her. Nope, Peter. So for Amy's 16th, idiots. You call a number, punch in a, I'm not explaining a beeper. If you don't know what it is, oh well.